Thank you so much. What a great privilege this actually is. And indeed, as you've said, Rifki, that each one of us, no matter where we find ourselves, can join together at this very unique and special kinnis. So it's an honor and a privilege for me to open the kinnis Hamachanches Tafshin Pei 5780, and to see in the audience so many colleagues and Talmidos, and indeed family members, fellow shluchos, and it's a privilege and an honor as well, just to tell you that Hannah Rose is an inspiration. I don't know about the other people on the committee, but her professionalism and her absolute ongoing encouragement, optimism is indeed inspiring. Hannah, may the efforts that you and your committee have put in be a fitting covet for our beloved Rebbe, for his moistus worldwide, and indeed beneficial for the three partners who come together to be Mechanech Hashem's beloved Kinderlach. Three, the teacher, the father and mother. Indeed, it's a very special day. We're Baruch Hashem finally in the Shivat and Nechemta, and each one of us, wherever we are, doesn't have to explain to the other what has been happening, because, as the dear friend of mine says, we may not be in the same boat, but we are in the same storm. And perhaps the urgency that all of us are feeling to come out of this restriction is what the Rebbe has been trying to tell us. Do it now. Keravelt. The Rebbe feeling, obviously, the pain of the Shechina in Golus, and including us as partners in making the monumental difference that will be pleasing not only to each one of us and all of creation, but of course, to our beloved Father in heaven himself. So here we are in the privileged position of being the educators of Hashem's own Kinderlach, and coming together in our numbers at this uncertain time. But there's one thing that's certain: there is a great oyer in this choshech, and we will do what we can to bring nachas and pride to the Eibishter, to the Rebbe and the Rabbeim, to each one of this incredible team that we are privileged to be part of. The power, the positivity of the Rebbe, guiding us, encouraging us, especially in times of darkness, to dig deeper, to find the hidden treasures that certainly exist in unusual times. There are treasures we have in ourselves that we don't even know about. There are treasures in our partners, the parents, and we join together with them. Together, we're a formidable force to unleash the untapped treasures in each one of the Kinderlach, each one falling under the category of Eretz Chayfetz, Ar Mechunochim, the Artsei Chayfetz. As the Eibishter says, Ve'atem tiyu li Eretz Chayfetz, an untapped, fertile soil, full of gems, full of gold, full of diamonds, full of incredible minerals, and above all, full of the power to give growth of every single kind. How fitting then it is, at this time of year, with the Rebbe's words ringing in our ears, that we first begin by connecting with our predecessors. Let's connect with Avraham Avinu. Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the Mahoi, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. Let's connect with Moshe Rabbeinu and David HaMelech and Shlomo HaMelech, Let's connect with each one of the Rabbeim. To each and every one of them, chinuch was paramount. Passing on the tradition, seeing that the next generation understands the preciousness of Torah. And they gave of themselves and continue to give of themselves, beginning with Avraham Avinu. The Eibishter says of Avraham Avinu, it's so many nisyonos, and he went through and he accomplished so much. But why does the Eibishter love him? L'man asher yitzaveh es bonov es beisoi achra v'shomru derech Hashem. That essentially what makes us beloved to the Eibishter is when we're able to impart to the kinder. And all of us know that our bonim, maybe our biological kinderlach, our talmidim, each and every one of us is so eminently privileged to be connected to Avraham Avinu. And the Rebbe in his very first mimer saw to it that we should know that we are continuing the work that Avraham Avinu blazed a trail through. Now more than ever before, it is important for each one of us to value ourselves and to know that the job that we're doing as women, as mothers, as machanchos, as madrichos, that work is of paramount importance to get us to the finish line. Each one of us stood at Sinai. Each one of us heard, Kois Soimar Leves Yaakov. Why the women first? Because the Eibishter knew that if we love something, our children will love it. If we hold something precious, we'll be able to transmit that to our children. And Eibishter said, I love Avraham because he saw to it that the kinderlach, that his children, yishmeru v'shomru es derech Hashem. Derech. There's a derech. And our derech, the derech of Chassidus, the Darkei Chassidus, calls for Chassidus. Kindness. Kindness to ourselves, kindness to the mechunachim, kindness to the parents. We are Chassidim, and it's essential that we know that that key must never become rusty. The key to the kinderlach is indeed through the parents. Of course, the Eibishter is the father, but the guardians of the kinderlach down here in this world, whether the children are small in grade 1, growing and developing as the Eibishter has designed, to go through changes in life, challenges, emotional challenges, different upheavals, the challenges that exist in family, the teenagers, kinderlach of the Eibishter. And when we are able to guide them, v'shamru, as derech Hashem. What is the derech Hashem? The derech Hashem, mahu rachum afato rachum, mahu chanun. It is a way of giving where he recreates all the time, where he gives and he gives and he gives. And for us to connect his kinderlach to him. And maybe sometimes his kinderlach means the parents. The teachers have a big job. The teachers have that arm's length, that little bit of perspective, especially in these times. And we, as Lubavitcher Chassidim, who have been led and inspired by the Rabbeim, not only in word, but in action, with example, each one of our Royei Ne'emon, with their love and persistence, devotion and dedication, indeed, Avraham Avinu, Moshe Rabbeinu, David HaMelech, Shlomo HaMelech. Wherever we see their words, we see their action. And what do they care about? Cared about their children, their personal children, their Talmidim. And the Eibishter promised them that their work would not be in vain. And somehow, it's in our generation that we've been given the privilege, somehow, although we are small, to complete the life's work of these, we can't even use the word giants. How can we even begin to relate to who our holy forebears are? But we know one thing, we have with incredible schus been dropped in to the generation of all generations. We are the most privileged generation that has ever existed. We are the ones gathering up the remnants. We are the ones that are putting the finishing touches on this Dira B'Tachtonim for the Eibishter. And we are the ones who are privileged to be working with the Eretz Chayfetz. The treasures that exist inside these Kinderlach cannot be measured, they cannot be understood, and our privilege is to be there at the forefront. We need to connect ourselves with Chesed, and we need to connect the Kinderlach with tremendous love, not only to the teachings, but to the beloved personalities who teach, beginning with Avraham Avinu, coming down to our Rebbe. Their love for Yidden is so palpable. They used the medium of love, and they translated their love into action. They nurtured others physically, spiritually, and so on. And it was by teaching, by transmitting, by giving this treasure called Torah. They all highlighted the power of Kinderlach, the power of young people. We who are privileged to teach those Kinderlach have to, first of all, sit very tall and value ourselves. I want to share a story with you, a wonderful guidance from the Rebbe. We came to South Africa. Baruch Hashem, my husband was 23, I was 22. We were expecting our first baby. And from days after coming, I was already in the classroom. The Rebbe at that time was speaking so much about chinuch that I was positive that once the baby was born, I would not go back to teach. First of all, we were in a new country. There were no mothers. There were no mothers-in-law. There were no sisters. There were no aunties. Nobody to look after this precious neshama. For sure. I did have a helper, but what kind of songs would she sing to the baby? I couldn't possibly leave her to be at that impressionable stage affected by the environment. But still, I wrote to the Rebbe, sure that the Rebbe would say, of course, stay home. Sing nigunim to the baby, protect the baby, make sure. The Rebbe was speaking at that time so much about Treifa Chayes in the books, the stories, the fairy tales, even the blanket and even the clothes. It was a whole new story. And the Rebbe's answer was, Lo shuv lelamed. Okay? The Rebbe said, we made a plan. Baruch Hashem, a second baby, Lo shuv lelamed. When the third baby was born, my husband, Zol Sein Gesund, was in for Yechidus. And he asked the Rebbe, 3 pitzalach. And the Rebbe said at that time, Ich halt, as es ist für ihr gut, zu sein a mora und a madricha. I'm of the opinion that it is good for her to be both a teacher and that incredible word, madricha, lahadrich, to direct on a derech. That answer speaks volumes for how the Rebbe cares about us. It's good for us. And the question is, what does it give us? The answers are many. One great thing it gives us, Not only the privilege of, if we're teaching high school, whatever, older children, to look into Sforim and so on, but to connect with the purity of the kinder, to connect, and through them, umitalmidai yoser mikulam. The Rebbe guided me over and over again on this path, which I never thought I would pursue. But the power of children is the power to start anew, the power to tap into the pure neshamas. The Baal Shem Tov was a Bahelfer. The Rabbeim had incredible sensitivity to kinder. The Alter Rebbe as a child, and we know the stories, organizing classes for poor children. The Tzemach Tzedek crawling into a furnace because he wasn't allowed to come in to hear the Alter Rebbe teaching certain things. The Maharash's love of Sforim. Why is it that the Rabbeim have shared all this with us? Because basically, example speaks louder than words. And today I want to share with you something which is most inspiring on an ongoing basis for me. And that is the Frierdiker Rebbe sharing with us about his chinuch, sharing his father, the Rashab, with us in an entirely personal and different sort of way. In-depth sharing, clear guidelines, chinuch. And he begins by telling us things that are so personal that, of course, we're privileged. And in addition to feeling privileged, we have to be guided. At this kinus, it's not just about ideas. It's about us being supported, getting clarity, being able to go forward. It's to help us go within and review, who are we? Why are we doing this? It's to help us go within. And once we've done it and feel the privilege, the next step is we have to go into the mechonach, to the child, the young woman, the person that we're going to teach. It's not just about my feelings. It's about her feelings, his feelings. I know that Rifki began by saying good morning, but I'm going to say almost good evening. And so it is around the world. The times are different right now. The seasons are different right now. But there's one thing that's the same. We each have a neshama. We each have a mission. The kinderlach are all Hashem's pure neshamas. And then there's the parents. And the first thing is to go within. Who am I? What's my mission and what do I want and how am I going to get there? Go within, what is the child feeling? And in these times, what are the parents feeling? We know that the Frierdiker Rebbe hat sich sehr gekocht in Chinuch HaKosher. Chinuch mit ehrlichem Melamdim. That the education should take place through upright educators. It means us. We have to examine ourselves thoroughly. Yes, we might like to teach, we might be good at it, but it's much more than a profession. It's much more than a calling. It really is a huge godly privilege that's connected with our neshama itself. And so you have to be a mora, you have to be a madricha, and you have to bring yourself to the classroom or to the computer each time fresh and ready to connect with the neshamas out there. Of course, we have to teach, to impart information. Of course, we want to motivate and get the kinderlach motivated. But the question is, can we inspire? And so the Frierdiker Rebbe gives us something absolutely to treasure. It's a treasure of a father to a child. Our holy fathers are Rabbeim, to us, their children. What happened? The Frierdiker Rebbe had a sick father, and the Rebbe Rashab was away from home a lot. The Rebbe Rashab was in healing places, in Heilplätze. The Rebbe Rashab even missed being home for Pesach, long stretches of time. That family situation was not normal. And the Frierdiker Rebbe tells of the joyous time when finally his father began to be machanech him. He was almost 15 years old. And he describes to us how his father got through to him. The Frierdiker Rebbe, could we venture to say, felt abandoned? Was there resentment that had built up? Here's a almost 15-year-old boy whose father was hardly ever at home, a father whom he adored, a father who could not devote himself to him and his chinuch. What happened? So the Frierdiker Rebbe talks about the wonderful, momentous time when his father was finally going to begin to educate him. But before he tells us about that, he gives thanks to 4 of his melamdim. And we want to examine that because the Frierdiker Rebbe shares with us that these 4 people prepared him to receive the chinuch from his father. Who were they? Well, there were 4. And he says, I'm grateful to all of them for my hachshara chinuch. They made me ready. They got me ready so that I would be able to receive the chinuch and the hadracha from my father. So he tells us about them. First of all, there was the elementary teacher. His name was Reb Yekusiel Dardeki Melamed. What does he say about Reb Yekusiel? He said he was a hartziker Chabad chosid, a kluger. He was clever, he was warm-hearted, he was Chabad and he was a chosid. A groiser bal midas toivus, refined. So already we're just hearing about the person. And then he said, he enthralled us, little children that we were, with stories from the Medrash and Tanakh that we didn't yet know. And he instilled in us the Ge'oin Yankov Gefühl, the pride of being a Yid. That was Reb Yekusiel. And we can understand, there's so many things there that make us reflect on ourselves and say, am I proud? Am I good-hearted? Is being a Chabad Chassid foremost for me? Am I giving that all out to the kinderlach besides that I know how to choose good material, fascinate them with the stories? He's relating to this teacher who was a tzir of a Chassid. His second teacher was Reb Shimshon. Why does the Frierdiker Rebbe include him if he says he was a guter melamed, but a given a kaisen? He had a bad temper. And the Frierdiker Rebbe would never say something chas v'sholem negative. He doesn't say he was a chassid. He doesn't say that, he was Reb Shimshon, my melamed, or hachosid Reb Shimshon. He just says he was a guter melamed, aber a kaisen. And then he said he had these dike lederne lokshen, these big straps. And he used to whip us with those straps, and it really hurt us. I want us to think, why would the Frierdiker Rebbe include this? Well, he wasn't kind, but he was a good melamed. He didn't say I'm a chassid. he's a chassid because es hat ihm gefällt. Nevertheless, perhaps sometimes we have to use gvura. He does say he was a good melamed. It must be important that we're boundaried as well and that we can show the kinderlach who's in charge. His third melamed. Well, just to finish, just to know for ourselves, if we have any of those deficiencies, we're not perfect. We're human. It also teaches the kinderlach there are different characters in the world. We can only speculate why he included it there. But then we have to ask ourselves, why would the Rashab want him to have such a melamed? Obviously, we can think about it ourselves, but a child needs to know that the world is a world with all kinds of people, all kinds of situations, and we have to learn how to deal. And if the rule is, azeu nit anders, sometimes that's what we need in our chinuch along the way. His third melamed, der dritter melamed, again he says, a chosid nissenskabla, who cultivated and aroused a chassidischen gefühl, a sensitivity. And he's grateful to him because he helped him to become ready to receive the chinuch of his father. But the one he starts with and ends with is his beloved Rashbatz. And anyone who's ever studied, read the story of how the Rashbatz became a chassid is so drawn to this person. And again, to indicate we have to give the children these human tsiurim that they can relate to. And he says, I thank him. He should have a lichtig in Gan Eden that he prepared me with 18 months of hachshara chinuch, preparation chinuch, focused on what? To receive my father's chinuch. He said he put me into a keren oira, into a ray of light, a chassidischen keren oira, to be able to receive my father's hadracha. We need to look at the children from a broader perspective. We need to look at ourselves. And now what about the kinderlach? The child might be in grade 1, in grade 4, in grade 6, in grade 12. I'm not just a teacher. I'm not just teaching a subject or a skill or a curriculum or have to cover material. I give very good tests. I have tremendous, beautiful ways of presenting. But remember, it's a neshama here. That neshama is going to grow up to be a whole person. So inside that bud is the whole flower. He's going to be a chayil. We have to look at her. She's going to be an akeres habayis. He's going to be a shliach. She's going to be a shlucha. He's going to be a balabas, a balstoka. That one's going to be a teacher. That one's going to be a leader. Imir Hashem, a father, a mother, a grandfather, a grandmother. We have to teach the kinderlach as a whole person, a person who's going to be a leader, giving, caring. And it's our example and the example of their parents that they will draw on for the rest of their lives. Each one has to feel that creation is waiting for them and they will complete the dira b'tachtonim. And to do that, we have to understand them, we have to respect them, we have to approach them with what the child needs. Love, discipline, love, the sandwich. And so, watching the time here, the Rebbe Rashab is about to teach his child. He prepares to teach the Frierdiker Rebbe, who's nearly 15. They begin with a series of walks. Walks on which the Frierdiker Rebbe hears these very deep family stories. And then he has to guide him. So before he starts to guide him, he says, come to my room, I want to talk to you. Frierdiker Rebbe says like this. He says, in the first few words of my father's speaking, I saw the tremendous feelings that the one who wants to educate has to have for the student, that the mechanech has to have for the mechunach. And only then will his chinuch be successful. He says, in the first few words that my father spoke to me, he says, I saw he understood me. And there was created a pneumistic bond between me and my father, but not as my father, but as the one who wants to educate me. The doors opened. He said, before he taught me, he taught me. I could see the great understanding that's needed for the feelings of the mechunach. And only then will the chinuch bring the desired results. He says, because when the mechunach feels understood, cared for, that the mechanech really gets him, he says a connection is made. In the Frierdiker Rebbe's case, due to ill health, his father wasn't there. His father begins to tell him how much he suffered having to give over his child to other people that they should look after him. And here's this young boy, and he's busy telling him everything he went through, and he begins to cry. He says, I wasn't in the position to educate you because of my poor health, but I suffered, I went through, I missed you, I wanted to be with you. Please understand. And he says, those few words aroused an unlimited connection to my father. He says, the greatest describer of feelings can never put it into words. That connection that I now felt for him. And then what did the father do? He didn't just give flowery words. He gave him a bracha, and he went ahead and made him a seder. Times to learn, times to review, even times to write his diary. Think about it. He understood him. And then those walks, even if it rained, if the weather was bad, he had committed to it, and he was showing that he was dependable. He cared, and of course that brings tremendous amount of confidence in the child. When he speaks about the Rashbats knew what the Frierdiker Rebbe wanted. He wanted his father. So the focus of the Hachshara Chinuch was that you could be ready to receive from your father. Children want their parents' love. The first and foremost thing is they want their parents' approval. You know what they say? For a child, T-I-M-E spells love. Spend time with me. You know, the story about the little girl who was saying to her mother, Mommy, Mommy said, I'm listening. She said, listen with your face. Give me your presence, even a little bit, but undivided. That fills a child up. It's the parents whom they trust, whom they feel close to, whose approval they want. Sure. Moshe Rabbeinu says, Sha'al avicha v'yageitcha. Ask your father, he'll tell you. And the word v'yageitcha is a word of gvura. V'saged l'vnei Yisrael. When something not easy has to be told, they'll accept it from a parent. Of course, we keep saying the bonim, the talmidim, etc., but the actual parents have incredible power. The actual parents are the ones who are closest to the child, the ones the child wants to connect to in a really deep, meaningful, with your face kind of way, each one in an age-appropriate way. At this time, we need to think, and we need to spend time not only preparing the lessons and giving the lessons and finding better ways to give the lessons and reaching out to the kinderlach outside the lessons. We need to bring the parents in. Friedrich Rebbe speaks about the mochel, the dance, that he was taken into the mochel together with all the rabbeim, that privileged things were told to him. We have to take the parents into the mochel. When a child begins to speak, Oviv malamdoi Torah tziva. The Rashab was the tate and the mechanech. Whether it's your biological bonim, your talmidim, it's powerful. But the combination, the Rashab taught him, and the amount that he taught him, when we read, we hear how he drew him close and he drew him into the work. Winning combination. So this is a time of Yisroin Ha'or Min HaChoshech. We have to find the oyer in the choshech. And for a lot of mothers, it's pretty choshech at home. We're still in the middle of the school year, and it's frustrating. Everything's upside down at home. But min ha-choshech, with the parents. Let's re-engage the parents. Let's access that greater light, which must exist in this restricted time, and let's bring it out. The universe is changing. The light that Yidden have to offer will come through the back window. We know that when we strengthen mitzvahs, somehow everything in the world falls into balance. And the Rebbe Rashab blessed, he gave a bracha to the Friedrich Rebbe. Hashem Yisborach Sol Baglikon, may the Eibishter bless you, that you should be Makabel Didarkei Achinuch in Apnimius, that what I am teaching you should be utterly internalized. He said, Mitach Siddishim Pnimius, that illuminates with an Atzmi Upnimi, that shines with a penetrating essential light. It is positivity, it is light that is needed. And somehow I sense that if we are really madrichos, machanchos, the chinuch has to reach a little bit further. It is for us to stay focused and humble, connected and open to the parents. May we be zoicha to give from our pnimius to their pnimius. And I want to share with you something that the Rebbe wrote to me after quite a difficult time. And under difficult circumstances, I still made a trip, encouraged by my family, of course, to Australia in 1987. It was already Tismach, because it was Parshas Chayei Sarah. And the Rebbe wanted duchen from each place, and I was in 4 places in Australia. And the final duch when I came home, it wasn't easy. I was pregnant, I was older already. Now I'm young, then I was older. And unfortunately, my shver had passed away suddenly. And it was just a challenging time. And the Rebbe answered, it was a tach, it was a thank you for the duch. And then he said, Ashrei chelka v'godel schusa. How fortunate is her portion and how great is her schus. I want to share that with you. But then he said, because this was before Hanukkah, and Hanukkah is, of course, chinuch, renewal. And the Rebbe said then, V'hazman grama, And the time is perfect. Moisif v'hoylech v'oyer. Hanukkah is what? That we light another candle every night. We're not satisfied with the amount of light that we've already brought. Moisif v'hoylech v'oyer. That the light increases. May it increase within ourselves personally, within our families, visible brachas. May it increase in our efforts to reach out to the holy parents who are going through such a rough time. And of course, to illuminate the neshamas of the kinderlach in a way of moisif, v'hoylech, v'oyer, and bring us to the ultimate oyer, the big oyer that will bathe the entire world with Deus Havaya. Thank you so much.